Krishna.
Welcome.
I hope that everybody is well. Here in Vrindavan, we're well. Last week we had the auspicious disappearance of Govinda Swami Maharaj and his samadhi ceremony and memorial after that. And it was a very wonderful celebration. It was a very wonderful event. We often describe the passing of Vaishnava is that it's bitter and it's sweet simultaneously. It's bitter because we can no longer have the association of that Vaishnava, but it's sweet. The Vaishnava attains his goal of life, which is to go back to the local Vrindavan and serve the lotus feet of Radhesham. So that was a very big event that happened last week here in Vrindavan. Otherwise, everything has been well. Temperatures went up slightly, but the past few days we've had sort of rainy, overcast weather. So it's the type of weather where I wish I could just push a button and keep the weather like this. But unfortunately, I can't do that. Okay, today we'll read some Chaitanya Charitamrita. We will there's some sort of noise going on outside. I'm not sure what it is. I guess it's subsiding now. Today we'll read from Chaitanya Charitamrita about Jagadananda Pandit and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jagadananda Pandit and Sanatana Goswami. And we will read some about Raghunath Bhatta Goswami. Jagadananda was one of the associates of Lord Chaitanya. He lived with him in Jagannath Puri, and periodically the Lord would give him permission to go and visit either Bengal in order to take Mahaprasadam to Mother Sachi and the Vaishnavas there, and to give Sachi news about what her son was doing. And he also instructed, well, he was begged by Jagadananda to go to Vrindavan. And Mahaprabhu was a little reluctant to allow Jagadananda to go. Jagadananda in Lord Krishna's Lila Satyabhama. And we read about Satyabhama, and we always hear she has a little bit of a hot-tempered nature. And sometimes Jagadananda would become upset with Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu would say, no, I don't want you to go when you're like this, because you'll tell people bad things about myself. But he sincerely wanted to go, and so the Vaishnavas, they petitioned Lord Chaitanya on behalf of Jagadananda. That's the real merciful nature of the Vaishnavas, that they will approach the Lord on behalf of other Vaishnavas, and they will request the Lord to bestow mercy. So we'll start reading, but I had to figure out how to deal with this. Okay. At the request of Sarup Damodar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu granted Jagadananda Pandit permission to go to Vrindavan. The Lord then sent for Jagadananda and instructed him as follows. You may go as far as Varanasi without encountering disturbances, but beyond Varanasi, you should be very careful to travel on the path in the company of Kshatriyas. And Prabhupada just mentions in one line that during that period, the road from Varanasi to Vrindavan was infested with the robbers and dacoits. So it was always necessary to travel with Kshatriyas in order to be safe. As soon as the plunderers on the road see a Bengali traveling alone, they take everything from him, they arrest him, and they will not let him go. And Prabhupada in his purport, he says, Bengalis are generally not very stout and strong. Therefore, when a lone Bengali traverses the roads of Bihar, the plunderers on the road capture him, rob him of his belongings, and kidnap him for their own service. According to one opinion, the rogues of Bihar know very well that Bengalis are intelligent. Therefore, these thieves generally force the Bengalis into service that requires intelligence and do not allow them to leave. When you reach Mathura, you should remain with Sanatana Goswami and offer respectful obeisances to the feet of all of the leading men there. Do not mix freely with the residents of Mathura. Show them respect from a distance. Because you are on a different platform of devotional service, you cannot adopt their behavior and their practices. So this is Srila Prabhupada's purport. The residents of Vrindavan and Mathura are devotees of Krishna in parental affection, and their feelings always conflict with opinions of smarta Brahmins. Devotees who worship Krishna in opulence cannot understand the parental devotional feelings of the residents of Mathura and Vrindavan, who follow the path of spontaneous love. Devotees on the platform of Vidhi Marg, regulative devotional principles, may misunderstand the activities of those on the platform of Rag Marg, devotional service and spontaneous love. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Jagadananda Pandit to remain aloof from the residents of Vrindavan who were spontaneous devotees, so as not to become disrespectful to them. I'm not sure these days how many of the residents of Vrindavan are situated on the platform of spontaneous love, but we certainly acknowledge their high birth and their punya by having taken birth in the land of Brajabhumi. So although we may joke with the Brajabasis, we're always respectful in our dealings with the Brajabasis. Visit all 12 forests of Vrindavan in the company of Sanatana Goswami. Do not leave his association even for a moment. Mahaprabhu really wanted to protect Jagadananda while he was over here. And that's really, that should really be our nature also, that we understand the importance of always keeping the association of Vaishnavas. Although in our daily activities, we have to associate with so many people. All of you have to go to work. All of you have to associate with your colleagues at work who are basically material-minded people. But we should try to get as much sadhu sangha, Vaishnava association as we can, because this will protect us from the intoxicating effects of matter. You should remain in Vrindavan for only a short time, and then you should return here as soon as possible. Also, do not climb Govardhan Hill to see the Gopal deity. Purport. In his Amrita Prabha Bhashya, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur advises that one avoid remaining in Vrindavan for a very long time. As the saying goes, familiarity breeds contempt. If one stays in Vrindavan for many days, he may fail to maintain proper respect for its inhabitants. Therefore, those who have not attained the stage of spontaneous love for Krishna should not live in Vrindavan for a very long time. It is better for them to make short visits. One should also avoid climbing Govardhan Hill to see the Gopal deity. Since Govardhan Hill is identical with Gopal, one should not step on the hill or touch it with his feet. One may see Gopal when he goes elsewhere. So when Mahaprabhu came to Vrindavan, Gopal started spreading rumors that there were going to be invaders coming to Vrindavan. So the people became concerned, and they took Gopal off of Govardhan Hill and they took him to Mathura. And that was arranged so that Mahaprabhu could have Gopal's darshan, because Mahaprabhu would not walk on the Govardhan Hill. And similarly, we don't walk on the Govardhan Hill. We see the Brajabasi children and folks running and doing everything on Govardhan, but we understand that Govardhan and Krishna are the same, therefore we will not place our feet on the hill. Inform Sanatan Goswami that I am coming to Vrindavan for a second time, and that he should therefore arrange a place for me to stay. After saying this, the Lord embraced Jagadananda Pandit, who then worshipped the Lord's feet and started for Vrindavan. He took permission from all the devotees and then departed. Traveling on the forest path, he soon reached Varanasi. When he met Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar in Varanasi, they heard from him about topics concerning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We should remember that when Sanatana Goswami escaped from the prison at Hussain Shah's, when Sanatana Goswami escaped, then he went to one of the first places he came to was Varanasi, and the Lord was in Varanasi at that time, and the Lord, he looked at, and the Lord was staying with either Tapan Mishra or Chandrasekhar, I can't remember which one, and Lord Chaitanya, he looked up and he said, "There's a great Vaishnava outside. Please go out and find this Vaishnava." And when they went outside, they only found this Muslim gentleman with like very long beard and wearing like salwar kameez, and he had a very opulent shawl on his shoulder. He was very thin from traveling. And they went in and they told Mahaprabhu, they said, there's no Vaishnav here. There's just, one Muslim fakir outside. And Mahaprabhu said, no, there's a great Vaishnav. And he went out, and when he saw Sanatana Goswami rose, and then they both embraced one another, and they became overwhelmed in ecstatic love. And, Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar, they didn't know who this was. And then Mahaprabhu told them, said, this is Sanatana Goswami. And he is the most qualified Vaishnava. And he said, you please take him now and give him clean cloth, give him Vaishnava cloth to wear, and shave him nicely, and then bring him back and we'll take prasad. So they took Sanatan, he had his bath, and then one of them, they brought a new dhoti to Sanatan. And Sanatan said, no, I cannot accept this, because I have left that life to come here and lead a life of renunciation. So what Sanatan did is he looked at them and he said, you please bring me one of your old pieces of cloth. And so they brought him an old dhoti. And Chaitanya Charitamrita says he tore that dhoti in such a way that he had like a Babaji gamsha to wear. And then he had like a little piece of white cloth to put on his shoulder. And then he still had that nice blanket. And the way that he had gotten that blanket is that when he was coming from Malda on the way, he met, I think it was his sister and her husband, whose responsibility was to buy horses for the army of Hussein Shah. And when they saw Sanatan in such a sort of like a messy, unkempt state, his brother-in-law, he felt concerned. He said, please take this shawl and keep it with you. And you can only imagine with the positions that this family and connected family had with Hussein Shah. It must have been something like a very opulent, beautiful Kashmiri Pashmina chadar, something extraordinary. And so when Sanatan went back to Mahaprabhu looked at him and he was saying, oh, this is so nice. You look so effulgent, you're shaved, you look so beautiful. And but while he was speaking Sanatan, Mahaprabhu was just staring at that opulent chadar. And then Sanatan could understand that Lord Chaitanya did not approve that he was keeping something so opulent like that. So what Sanatan did is when he went to the river to have his bath the next day, there was some very poor man, some very poor sadhu, Babaji, something, old man. And he had some thin cloth, and that was his chadar, and he was washing that out, and he was putting it on the sun, on the sides of the river to dry out. And Sanatan looked at him and he said, "Sir, your shawl or your chadar," he said, "it's so nice." He said, "Would you please take mine and let me take yours?" And that man looked up and he said, "You seem to be such a respectable gentleman. Why are you making fun of me? Saying things like this?" And Sanatan said, no, I'm very sincere. I want you to have this shawl and I will take your shawl. So he exchanged. And then when he went back to Mahaprabhu looked at him and he said, "Yes, this is so nice that, Sanatana Goswami has accepted a life of renunciation." And when he first came back, it was time for Mahaprabhu's lunch. And Mahaprabhu, he instructed Chandrasekhar and Tapan Mishra, said, when he comes, you bring him and he can sit and he can take with me. And Sanatana Goswami, when he heard that, he said, no. He said, "I've come here to lead a life of renunciation. And if I'm always filling my stomach with full meals, how will I ever be able to attain the state of renunciation?" So from his first day in the association of Mahaprabhu, he accepted that principle of madhukari. And the rest of his life, he would always do madhukari, meaning he would go from door to door and he would beg. And as we will see in this chapter, sometimes if a person prepared prasad, he would accept, but generally his life was that of a beggar. So now when he met Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar in Varanasi, they heard from him about topics concerning Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Finally, Jagadananda Pandit reached Mathura, where he met Sanatana Goswami. They were very, very pleased to see one another. And that's how we should be as Vaishnavas. We should be most pleased when we see other Vaishnavas. When Vaishnavas come to our homes or we meet Vaishnavas here or there, we should always feel happy and blessed because we have seen a person whose intent of his life is the service of his Guru Maharaj and the service of Krishna. After Sanatana Goswami had taken Jagadananda to see all 12 forests of Vrindavan, concluding with Mahavan, the two of them remained in Gokula. They stayed in Sanatana Goswami's cave, but Jagadananda Pandit would go to a nearby temple and cook for himself. Sanatana Goswami would beg alms from door to door in the vicinity of Mahavan. Sometimes he would go to a temple, and sometimes he would go to a Brahmin's house. So Jagadananda would go to the temple and cook, and Sanatan would do madhukari. Sanatana Goswami attended to all of Jagadananda Pandit's needs. He begged in the area of Mahavan and brought Jagadananda all kinds of things to eat and drink. One day, Jagadananda Pandit, having invited Sanatan to the nearby temple for lunch, finished his routine duties, and he began to cook. And Jagadananda was a good cook. Previously, a great sannyasi named Mukunda Saraswati had given Sanatana Goswami an outer garment. Sanatana Goswami was wearing this cloth bound around his head when he came to Jagadananda Pandit's door and sat down. After assuming the reddish cloth to be a gift from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jagadananda Pandit was overwhelmed with ecstatic love. Thus he questioned Sanatana Goswami. How nice that is that he just saw the reddish saffron cloth that Sanatana Goswami was wearing. And he was thinking, oh, Mahaprabhu must have given this. And just thinking in that way, he went into ecstasy. So now Jagadananda is speaking to sort of Damodar. Where did you get that reddish cloth on your head? Sanatana Goswami replied, Mukunda Saraswati gave it to me. Hearing this, Jagadananda Pandit immediately became angry, and he took a cooking pot in his hand, intending to beat Sanatana Goswami. That's called like a hot nature. You know, he just thought for a second that Sanatana Goswami was not being true to Mahaprabhu by wearing the cloth of another sannyasi on his head. He just immediately picked up a pot and he was getting ready to beat Sanatana Goswami. Sanatana Goswami, however, knew Jagadananda Pandit very well and was consequently somewhat ashamed. Jagadananda therefore left the cooking pot on the stove and spoke as follows. You are one of the chief associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Indeed, no one is dearer to him than you. Still, you have bound your head with the cloth given to you by another sannyasi. Who can tolerate such behavior? Sanatana Goswami said, My dear Jagadananda Pandit, you are a greatly learned saint. No one is dearer to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu than you. Now this is the other nice Vaishnava exchange. Jagadananda was saying, you are greatly dear to Mahaprabhu, you're one of his leading devotees. And Sanatana Goswami is saying, no, you are a great saint. No one is dearer to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu than you. This faith in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quite befits you, Jagadananda. Unless you demonstrate it, how could I learn such faith? So that's a nice thing. He said, I know your character. And just the fact that you could pick up that pot and get ready to beat me, you know, thinking that I was not expressing fidelity to Mahaprabhu. He said, it just befits your nature. And he says, and because you demonstrate that nature in front of me, he says, now I can also learn how to have the wonderful faith that you possess. Let me close my windows because the Babajis are starting to have kirtan next door and it's kind of loud. My purpose in binding my head with the cloth has now been fulfilled because I have personally seen your uncommon love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that's another nice look into the mind and the thinking process of the Vaishnava. You know, Jagadananda picked up a pot. He was going to beat Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami says, now I can understand that, you know, there was purpose in binding my head with that cloth, because by doing that, I've personally seen the deep and uncommon type of love that you have for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then Sanatana says, this saffron cloth is unfit for Vaishnava to wear, therefore I have no use for it. I shall give it to a stranger. When Jagadananda Pandit finished cooking, he offered the food to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then he and Sanatana Goswami sat down and they ate the prasadam. Sometimes Jagadananda would be angry at Mahaprabhu, and he would go to his room and lock the door and refuse to eat. And then Mahaprabhu would be so concerned about Jagadananda's welfare, he would go to Jagadananda's room and tap on the door, and he would say, Jagadananda, I want you to cook for me today. And then Jagadananda, his spirits would become very enlivened that he had the opportunity for service. And he would say, but how can I cook for you? I'm in an angry mood. And Mahaprabhu would say, oh, food cooked by angry people has so much more nice flavor. After eating the prasadam, they embraced one another, and then they cried due to separation from Lord Chaitanya. When will that wonderful day come when we just think of Lord Chaitanya and we begin to cry? They passed 2 months in Vrindavan in this way. Finally, they could no longer tolerate the unhappiness of separation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jagadananda Pandit therefore gave Sanatana the message from the Lord, I am also coming to Vrindavan. Please arrange a place for me to stay. When Sanatana Goswami granted permission for Jagadananda to return to Jagannath Puri, he gave Jagadananda some gifts for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The gifts consisted of some sand from the site of the Rasa Lila, a stone from the Govardhan hill, dried ripened pilu fruits, and a garland of small conch shells. Thus, Jagadananda, bearing all these gifts, started on his journey. Sanatana Goswami, however, was very much agitated after bidding him farewell. Soon afterward, Sanatana Goswami selected a place where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could stay while he was in Vrindavan. It was a temple in the highlands known as Dwadasaditya Tila. It's interesting how Prabhupada writes it was a temple in the highlands. The Dwadasaditya Tila is where Madan Mohan temple is. And you know, when you're walking on the Parikram and then you see the steps leading up to Madan Mohan, and the temple is sort of on the right side, and then on the left side when you go up, there's that little sort of platform that you can step up on, and then from there you can look out across Vrindavan. So that's called Dwadasaditya Tila, or the Hill of the 12 Suns. And it was named like that because after Krishna had chastised the Kaliya serpent in the Jamuna, that was winter time. and Krishna was very cold. So he went up on that hill just so he could warm up in the sun. And Surya Bhagavan could understand that Krishna was feeling chilled, so he expanded himself 12 times. So Vadasa. Sanatana Goswami kept the temple very clean and in good repair. In front of it, he erected a small hut. Meanwhile, traveling very quickly, Jagannatha Pandit soon arrived in Jagannath Puri, much to the joy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees. After offering prayers to the lotus feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jagannatha Pandit greeted everyone. Then the Lord embraced Jagannatha very strongly. I always like this part when we read that Lord Chaitanya embraced his devotees. You know, Lord Chaitanya, he enjoyed embracing all of his devotees. Jagannatha Pandit offered obeisances to the Lord on behalf of Sanatana Goswami. Then he gave the Lord the dust from the site of the Rasa Lila, along with the other gifts. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu kept all the gifts except the pilu fruits, which he distributed to the devotees. Because the fruits were from Vrindavan, everybody ate these fruits with great happiness. Those devotees who were familiar with pilu fruits sucked on the seeds, but the Bengali devotees who did not know what they were, chewed the seeds and swallowed them. The hot, chili-like taste burned the tongues of those who chewed the seeds. Thus, the eating of pilu fruits from Vrindavan became a pastime of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, you know, say when we go to Terkadamba, and there are all of those trees which are bent over like kunjas. Those are pilu trees. And I learned last year that pilu in the West is called something to the effect of meswatch. And many times you'll see like toothpaste with some meswatch inside. So that's from pilu. I've never seen the fruits of the pilu, but apparently there are. And the seeds are like red hot chilies. So Mahaprabhu, he passed out the pilu fruits to everyone. And those people who knew just sucked on the seeds, but he pranked the Bengalis, and the Bengalis, they like chewed on the seeds, and then they were just, this chili was burning, very, very hot. And also he received a Gunjamala, and he received a Govardhan Shila, and he received dust from the place of the Rasa Lila. And when Mahaprabhu had that Govardhan Shila, he saw his Govardhan Shila exactly as though he were looking at Shamsundar. And Lord Chaitanya, he would like carry his Govardhan Shila on his chest. And when Lord Chaitanya would want to bathe his Govardhan Shila, he would hold it in his hands and he would bathe the Govardhan Shila with his tears. And then sometimes he would carry the Govardhan Shila on his head. And then after some time, he gifted that Govardhan Shila to Raghunath Das Goswami. And I always grew up understanding that Govardhan Shila is at Radha Gokulananda temple. And for many years, I've seen that Shila at Gokulananda. It's very small, and it has the impression of Mahaprabhu's thumbprint, where Mahaprabhu melt the stone in ecstasy of Mahabhav. Okay. When Jagadananda Pandit returned from Vrindavan, everyone was jubilant. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu enjoyed his pastimes while residing in Jagannath Puri. Yeah, you know, the Vaishnava came back from Vrindavan. Everybody was happy. They were happy to see Jagadananda. They wanted to hear about Vrindavan. And they wanted to hear about the Vaishnavas in Vrindavan, how they're doing, what's it like. And I can remember the first years that devotees would go to India, and when they would come back, you know, we devotees who hadn't gone, we would just sit and we would talk for hours. What was this like? What was that like? What did you do here? What did you do there? And we just became absorbed in the nectar of hearing about Vrindavan. One day when the Lord was going to the temple of Yameshwar, a female singer began to sing in the Jagannath temple. She sang a Gujarati tune in a very sweet voice. And because the subject was Jayadev Goswami's Gita Govinda, the song attracted the attention of the entire world, meaning it was quite beautiful. Hearing the song from a distance, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately became ecstatic. He did not know whether it was a man or a woman singing. As the Lord ran in ecstasy to meet the singer, the thorny hedges pricked his body. Let's see how hearing about Krishna, Mahaprabhu would become so carried away. Govinda ran very quickly behind the Lord, and the Lord did not feel any pain from the pricking of the thorns. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was running very quickly, and the girl was only a short distance away. Just then, Govinda caught the Lord in his arms and cried, "It is a woman singing." As soon as Mahaprabhu heard the word woman, the Lord became externally conscious and he turned back. "My dear Govinda," he said, "you have saved my life. If I had touched the body of a woman, I would certainly have died. I shall never be able to repay my debt to you." Govinda replied, "Lord Jagannath has saved you. I am completely insignificant." Again, Vaishnava mentality. I am insignificant. I have done nothing. It is all the mercy of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, "My dear Govinda, you should stay with me always. There is danger anywhere and everywhere. Therefore, you should protect me very carefully." Just one moment. For some reason, this is not working. Okay. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned home. When Swarup Damodar and his other attendants heard about the incident, they all became very much afraid. During this time, Raghunath Bhattacharya, the son of Tapan Mishra, gave up all of his duties and left home, intending to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, intending to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Accompanied by a servant who was carrying his baggage, Raghunath Bhatta started from Varanasi and traveled along the path leading through Bengal. In Bengal, he met Ramdas Vishwash, who belonged to the Kayasta caste, and he was one of the king's secretaries. Ramdas Vishwash was very learned in all the revealed scriptures. He was a teacher of the famous book Kavya Prakash and was known as an advanced devotee and worshipper of Raghunath, Lord Ramachandra. Ramdas had renounced everything and was going to see Lord Jagannath. While traveling, he chanted the holy names of Ram 24 hours a day. When he met Raghunath Bhatta on the way, he took Raghunath's baggage on his head and he carried it. Ramdas served Raghunath Bhatta in various ways, even massaging his legs. Raghunath Bhatta felt some hesitation, though, to accept all this service. Raghunath Bhatta would say, "You are a respectable gentleman, a learned scholar, and a great devotee. Please do not try to serve me. Just come with me in a happy mood." Ramdas replied, "I am a Sudra. I am a fallen soul. To serve a Brahmin is my duty and my religious principle. Therefore, please do not be hesitant. I am your servant, and when I serve you, my heart becomes jubilant." Thus, Ramdas carried the baggage of Raghunath Bhatta and served him sincerely. He constantly chanted the holy name of Lord Ramachandra day and night. So 2 times we've heard that. He chanted the names of Ram day and night. Traveling in this way, Raghunath Bhatta soon arrived at Jagannath Puri. There he met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with great delight and fell at his lotus feet. Raghunath Bhatta fell as straight as a rod at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then the Lord embraced him, knowing well who he was. So again, the Lord gives one of his devotees a big hug. Raghunath offered respectful obeisances to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu on behalf of Tapan Mishra and Chandrasekhar, and the Lord also inquired about them. "It is very good you have come here," the Lord said. "Now go see the lotus-eyed Lord Jagannath. Today you will accept prasadam here at my place." The Lord asked Govinda to arrange for Raghunath Bhatta's accommodations and then introduced him to all the devotees headed by Swarup Damodar Goswami. Thus Raghunath Bhatta lived with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continuously for 8 months, and by the Lord's mercy, he felt increasing transcendental happiness every day. He would periodically cook rice with various vegetables and invite Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his home. Just one moment, I'm having a little difficulty here. Raghunath Bhatta was an expert cook. Whatever he prepared tasted just like nectar. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would accept with great satisfaction all the food he prepared. And after the Lord was satisfied, Raghunath Bhatta would eat the Lord's remnants. When Ramdas Bishwash met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Lord did not show him any special mercy, although this was their first meeting. Within his heart, Ramdas Bishwash was an impersonalist who desired to merge into the existence of the Lord, and he was very proud of his learning. Since Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the omniscient Supreme Personality of Godhead, he can understand the heart of everyone, and thus he knew these things. Now that's pretty interesting, considering that 2 times already Kaviraj Goswami told us that Ramdas Bishwash, he chanted the holy names of Ram day and night. He just chanted and chanted and chanted, and he knew so many scriptures, but here it says within his heart, he was an impersonalist. And Lord Chaitanya knew that, and he didn't show him great mercy. Ramdas Bishwastin took up his residence in Jagannath Puri, and he taught the Kavya Prakash to the Patanayak family, the descendants of Bhavananda Roy. After 8 months, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu bade farewell to Raghunath Bhatta, the Lord flatly forbade him to marry. Do not marry, the Lord said. And we'll read the purport. Raghunath Bhattacharya had become greatly advanced, a greatly advanced devotee while still unmarried. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu could see this, and therefore he advised him not to begin the process of material sense gratification. Marriage is a concession for people who are unable to control their senses. Raghunath, however, being an advanced devotee of Krishna, naturally had no desire for sense gratification. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu advised him not to enter the bondage of marriage. Generally, a person cannot make much advancement in spiritual consciousness if he is married. He becomes attached to his family, and he is prone to sense gratification. Thus, his spiritual advancement is very slow or almost nil. Now, we can see Srila Prabhupada speaking very strongly here. He's speaking strongly. But Prabhupada, at the same time, he gave such a beautiful process of Krishna consciousness that he encouraged people to enter into family life and to live happily in family life, but live a dharmic, Krishna conscious family life. And by doing so, gradually and naturally become purified of the desire for sense gratification. And just like Prabhupada had his famous statement, he said, in order to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, my spiritual master created sannyasis. And for me to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, I'm creating grihastas, who will be very faithful grihastas and who will follow all of the regulative principles and will practice Krishna consciousness in the course of their family life and teach their children to be Krishna conscious. He said, in this way, this movement will spread very nicely. So, without Krishna consciousness, without Dharma, family life is a losing proposal. But with Krishna consciousness and following the principles of Dharma, by following the rules and regulations of the Grihastha ashram, a person can become very, very advanced in spiritual understanding. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said to Raghunath Bhatta, when you return home, serve your aged father and mother because they are devotees, and try to study Srimad Bhagavatam from a pure Vaishnava who has realized God. And so that's two instructions here. He's saying, serve your mom and dad because they're Vaishnavas. They're devotees and they're old and you need to take care. But then he gave them the important instruction. He said, try to study Srimad Bhagavatam from a pure Vaishnava who has realized God. And Prabhupada mentions two things. He mentions that he told Raghunath Bhatta to serve his parents because they were Vaishnavas. And then he cites Narottam Das Thakur, Chadiya Vaishnav Seva Nistarapaya Chikeva. Without serving self-realized Vaishnavas, no one has ever been able to become free from the materialistic way of life. And then, and then the emphasis is to study the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada's take on that, is true to Prabhupada's form. He immediately begins by saying one should not hear Bhagavatam from professional reciters of Bhagavatam, but one should hear Bhagavatam from pure devotees of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu concluded, "Come again to Nilachala." After saying this, the Lord put his own neck beads on Raghunath Bhatta's neck. How nice that must be. Come again to Nilachala, and then the Lord, beads that he had on his neck, he put those beads on Raghunath Bhatta's neck. Then the Lord embraced him and bade him farewell. Overwhelmed with ecstatic love, Raghunath Bhatta began to cry due to imminent separation from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. After taking permission from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and all the devotees headed by Swarup Damodar, Raghunath Bhatta returned to Varanasi. In accordance to the instructions of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he rendered service continuously to his mother and father for 4 years. He also regularly studied Srimad Bhagavatam from a self-realized Vaishnava. Then his parents died at Kashi, Varanasi, and he became detached. He therefore returned to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, giving up all relationships with his home. As previously, Raghunath remained continuously with Mahaprabhu for 8 months. Then the Lord gave him the following order. My dear Raghunath, on my order, go to Vrindavan, live there under the care of Rupa and Sanatana Goswamis. In Vrindavan, you should chant the Hare Krishna mantra 24 hours a day and read Srimad Bhagavatam continuously. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will very soon bestow his mercy upon you. Just nice instructions. Chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day, and then just continuously study the Bhagavatam. Saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu embraced Raghunath Bhatta, and by the Lord's mercy, Raghunath was enlivened with ecstatic love for Krishna. So just by Mahaprabhu's grace, Raghunath Bhatta became elevated position of spontaneous loving devotion to the Lord. At a festival, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been given some unspiced betel and a garland of tulsi leaves 14 cubits long. The garland had been worn by Lord Jagannath. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave the garland and betel to Raghunath Bhatta, who accepted them as worshipable deities and preserved them very carefully. And I think that if you go to the temple of Raghunath Bhatta here in Vrindavan, I think his family, they still have that garland preserved. And they also have the Bhagavatam that Raghunath Bhatta would recite from. Taking permission from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Raghunath Bhatta then departed for Vrindavan. When he arrived there, he put himself under the care of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami. While reciting Srimad Bhagavatam in the company of Rupa and Sanatana, Raghunath Bhatta would be overwhelmed with ecstatic love for Krishna. By the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he experienced the symptoms of ecstatic love, tears, trembling, and faltering of the voice. His eyes filled with tears and his throat became choked, and thus he could not recite the Srimad Bhagavatam. His voice was as sweet as a cuckoo's, and he would recite each verse of Srimad Bhagavatam in 3 or 4 tunes. Thus his recitations were very sweet to hear. When he recited or heard about the beauty and sweetness of Krishna, he would be overwhelmed with ecstatic love, and he would become oblivious to everything. Thus, Raghunath Bhatta surrendered fully at the feet of Lord Govinda, and those lotus feet became his life and his soul. Consequently, Raghunath Bhatta ordered his disciples to construct a temple for Govinda. He prepared various ornaments for Govinda, including a flute and shark-shaped earrings. Raghunath, now these are going to describe the nice qualities of Raghunath Bhatta, and these are qualities that we should aspire or would like to have. Raghunath Bhatta would neither hear nor speak about anything of the material world. He would simply discuss Krishna and worship the Lord day and night. He wouldn't speak about the material world. He only talked about Krishna and worship Krishna. This is another nice quality. He would not listen to blasphemy of a Vaishnava, nor would he listen to talk of a Vaishnava's misbehavior. He knew only that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service, and he did not understand anything else. So that's very important for us. Never listen to the criticism of another Vaishnava. And even though Vaishnavas make mistakes, never talk about another Vaishnava's misbehavior. The only thing that Raghunath Bhatta knew was that everyone was engaged in Krishna's service. He did not understand anything else. Let's see. Prabhupada's purport. Raghunath Bhatta never did anything harmful to a Vaishnava. In other words, he was never inattentive in the service of the Lord, nor did he ever violate the rules and regulations of a pure Vaishnava. It is the duty of a Vaishnava Acharya to prevent his disciples and followers from violating the principles of Vaishnava behavior. Therefore, he should always advise them to strictly follow the regular principles, which will protect them from falling down. Although a Vaishnava preacher may sometimes criticize others, Raghunath Bhatta avoided this. Even if another Vaishnava was actually at fault, Raghunath Bhatta would not criticize him. He only saw that everyone was engaged in the service of Lord Krishna. That is the position of a Maha-Bhagavat. Actually, even if one is serving Maya, in a higher sense, he is also the servant of Krishna, because Maya is the servant of Krishna. Anyone serving Maya serves Krishna indirectly. Therefore, it is said, Kehamani, Kehanamani, Sabatangradasa, Ye Namani Tarahaya Se Papinasha. Some accept him, whereas others do not, yet everyone is his servant. One who does not accept him, however, will be ruined by his sinful activities. This is really big instruction for all of us, that we should, if somebody starts criticizing a Vaishnava, we shouldn't listen. And especially, we should never allow our tongues to speak bad about Vaishnavas. I've sadly seen too much of this over my 52 years in the Krishna consciousness movement. Devotees become foolish, and they sometimes think that because they have some political aim to achieve, then they can cast aside Vaishnava Sadachar and they can not pay heed to the offenses to the holy name, beginning with criticizing the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. And unfortunately, people think that they have great reason for doing this, and generally the reasons are not great at all. There are always something temporary, which is insignificant. And the only thing that happens is their devotional creeper becomes destroyed. They wither up. They become offenders of Vaishnavas. They become offenders of spiritual masters. So never listen to blasphemy of a Vaishnava and never blaspheme a Vaishnava. And then it said his behavior was so nice that even if a Vaishnava had done a mistake, and we make mistakes because to err is human, but if people were talking, oh, this Vaishnava, he made this mistake, then he wouldn't listen. And his vision only was that everybody is engaged in Krishna's service. I just don't understand anything else. And Prabhupada pulls up the point in the purport that even if they're serving Maya, then Maya is the energy of Krishna, so indirectly they're serving Krishna. So it's a very high level, but we wouldn't be receiving this instruction in Chaitanya Charitamrita if we weren't meant to aspire to follow that very, very same example. And it's not that the example is there only for the perfected people, but the example is there because it's a statement that we're supposed to be like this as well. When Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was absorbed in remembrance of Lord Krishna, he would take the tulsi garland and the prasadam of Lord Jagannath given to him by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, bind them together and wear them on his neck. Thus I have described the powerful mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by which Raghunath Bhatta Goswami remained constantly overwhelmed in ecstatic love for Krishna. In this chapter, I have spoken about three topics: Jagadananda Pandit's visit to Vrindavan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's listening to the song of the Devadasi at the temple of Jagannath, and how Raghunath Bhatta Goswami achieved ecstatic love of Krishna by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari bestows ecstatic love for Krishna upon anyone who hears all these topics with faith and love. So if we have heard with faith and love today, we will be blessed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari to develop ecstatic love for Krishna. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pate Yara Asha Chaitanya Charitamrita Kahe Krishna Dasa. Praying at the lotus feet of Shri Rupa and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy. I, Krishna Das, narrate Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. Shri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami Ki Jai. Can somebody make the screen big on your side, because I'm not quite sure how to do it. Let me see.
Sir Maharaj, there is a button named as view. It would be in the right top corner.
View.
And there you can change the either gallery or the speaker view.
View. Okay, well anyhow, I'm not so intelligent, so I can't figure it out. Let me see. No, anyhow, thank you all for coming today. I hope that everybody is doing all right. I mentioned how we had a nice program we had such a wonderful celebration at the temple for Govinda Swami this last week. And then one night this last week, I had a program here at home for Govinda Swami Maharaj. And we had kirtan from 6:30 till 9. And then Balaram Baba, I requested him to make a nice feast. And we served practically 300 people that night at home. I mean, it was a full house. And many people came. And Vishaka came down from Gurugram, and she got 20 kilos of rabri made in one shop. And that was the preparation that all the devotees were dying for. More rabri, more rabri, more rabri. So that was very nice, but it was a very, very good feast. We had a few sabjis and kari pakora and rice and puris and dahi vada. It was really, really good. Plus Balaram Baba made kheer, and he gave rasgulla, and then Vishaka brought rabri and some besan burfi. Everybody ate up to their tops of their heads, and everybody chanted. It was very, very ecstatic, very, very ecstatic. Okay, so everybody stay well, and I sure wish that I could figure out how to do this screen thing. I'm not so intelligent, so I don't know how to do.
Guru Maharaj, shall I share my screen so you can see everybody?
It's okay. It's okay. Just everybody stay well, and come to Vrindavan. See you all in Vrindavan as soon as possible. Okay, Hare Krishna, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Or Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo, Dede Shira, Cha, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Jai, Hare Krishna.
Guru Maharaj. Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Dandavat pranam.
Wait a second, maybe I figured out how to do things. Hold on, let me see if I can see who is. Yes, the genius kicked in. So there's Subal, and there's Nam Kirtan. Hi, Bojai Govinda Radhamadava, Tulsi, Hare Krishna, Chanchalakshi, and Gokul Chandra, Hare Krishna. Jai Jai, Lord Krishna. Priyanka is there, Hare Krishna, Priyanka. Kunja Kishori, Hare Krishna. Kunja Kishori is translating for the Russians. Gopi Manohar and Lila Nandani, Hare Krishna, and Mayuri. Mayuri, how are you?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I'm great. How are you, Maharaj?
Okay, are you freezing?
Kind of, but the weather's getting better here. So that's nice.
The weather's getting better, so it's about 5 degrees.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's better than negatives for sure.
Okay, everyone, Hare Krishna, stay well, and come to Vrindavan as soon as you can.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dandavat pranam.
Thank you. Dandavat pranam.